home. She gave him her best perfume and poured it over Jesus. She didn't go down up under the cabinet and get some Avon or some Walmart brand. She got the best perfume she had because Jesus, she didn't even realize, they really hadn't comprehended. He'd been talking about his death and all of these kinds of things. But we know he's died. We know he's alive. We know what he did on Calvary. We know he got up from that grave. But we still don't give him our very best. Here was a woman acting on faith in what he had said. And so she gave him. Her offering, it was special. Her worship was special. And listen, sisters and brothers. The way she worships it and the way you worship it has to be special to you. And I'm a crier. I'll cry on you in a minute. I got a member of my church. He's a runner. He'll run around church all he wants to. And this sister who directs the choir, she stomps to get her worship out. Whatever your worship is, you let it be special to you. It's special to you because nobody knows like you what Jesus has done for you. So your worship ought to be spontaneous and it ought to be special. So W, you got to welcome him in. Number 2, you got to worship him. And number 3, you got to warn people. Don't mess with my worship. Don't mess with my relationship with Jesus. I don't care how good looking Negro you think you are. You can look like Denzel. But when it comes to Jesus, you better get back. That's the warning. Don't let nobody mess with your worship. Because see, listen, that's what Satan does. He doesn't see when you get into worship, you get into another realm. You see things differently when you worship. And that's what Satan doesn't want you to do. He doesn't want you to worship him in spirit and truth because you get above your problems. You look above your troubles. And so he doesn't want you to worship. And now listen, you got a right to warn people not to mess with your worship. If you don't believe me, look in the word there. The verse 6 said, Jesus said, leave her alone. Why are you bothering her? She's done a beautiful thing to me. Listen, when you give of your worship, you got to warn people to leave you alone. I've even told the ushers at Bracktown, don't fan me. Don't put out that fire that I feel on the inside. So you got a right to warn people. Don't mess with me when I'm with Jesus. When you spending private time at home and worship with him, and you ain't got to be in church to worship him. You can worship him at home. You can worship him on your job. You can worship him in your car. We had a lady in Lexington by the name of Miss Nadine Dabney. Miss Dabney was Miss Dabney didn't care where she was. She let everybody know whose side she was on. She traveled from the east to the Commonwealth of Kentucky to the west as the president of the Baptist Women's Educational Convention. She and another little lady, they were both in their 70s. One may have been 78, the other one 79, traveling on the highway. She was going down I-65 trying to get the Bowling Green. She had just gotten a new car. And she had an 8-track player in it. And she had bought an 8-track by James Cleveland. Put it in her car. And James Cleveland got to singing, I don't feel no ways tired. Sister Dabney got to shouting behind the wheel. Got to weaving all over the car, all over the road. The police pulled her over and said, ma'am, you are driving like somebody under the influence. She said, I am. Smell nothing. She said, you ain't. She said, here boy, listen to this song. That's what I'm driving under the influence of. I'm worshiping the one that woke me up this morning. I'm worshiping the one who takes care of me. And she said, you can give me a ticket if you want to, but I'm going to keep right on driving and worshiping him. to give Negroes the hand. Don't you mess with me. I'm getting my praise on. So W is your worship for real. As I close, let me share a story with you. Let me share a story. There's a story that Forrest Gump died and went to heaven. And Forrest was so excited that he had gotten to heaven. When he got to the pearly gates, there stood Peter, James, and John. And Forrest walked up to the pearly gates, and Peter said, "Welcome, Forrest." And Forrest said, "Is that you, Peter? Are you the one that walked on water? And the one that went down because you took your eye off Jesus?" Peter said, "I'm the one." And then he said, "Welcome to heaven." And Forrest is looking. And Peter, James, and John said, "Well, Forrest, you made it." He said, "I sure did." He said, "I'm so grateful to be here. But you know what? I really want to get past y'all and get through the gate, because I want to see Jesus. I want to see the one who stretched his arms out. And I want to see the one who died for me. And the one who allowed me to make it this far." And the Peter and them, they said, "Well, hold up, Forrest, hold up. You're going to get in. You're going to get in." He said, "Now, before you can officially get in, you got to take a test. You got to take just a short test." Forrest said, "Now, wait a minute. I thought the only questions that I ever had to ask, the only questions I ever had to answer was the fact that I accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior. I didn't know there was going to be no test when I got up." And they said, "Calm down. You're going to get in for us. This short little quiz is just to decide exactly what mansion you're going to get." Forrest said, "Well, all right then." They said, "Now here it is. It's so easy, Forrest. We're going to give you the 3 questions up front. You go over there, sit down on a cloud, and when you're ready to answer them, you come back and we'll open the gate and let you in." Forrest said, "All right." They said, "Now here's your 3 questions. What 2 days of the week start with the letter T?" Forrest said, "Okay." Question 2, how many seconds are in a year? Forrest said, "Okay." And the 3rd question is, what is God's first name? Forrest said, "Okay." Forrest went over, sat 3 hours, came back. He said, "Peter, I'm ready to answer my questions." He said, "Because I got to get in. I want to see." Because see, I've been told that there's no son, S-U-N, in this city, that the only son is the S-O-N, and I got to get in. I got to see him. They said, "Okay, Forrest, answer your questions." They said, "All right, question 1, Forrest. What 2 days of the week start with the letter T?" Forrest said, "Today and tomorrow." Peter looked at James looked at John. Peter said, "Now, that's not quite what we had in mind, Forrest, but we can take your answer, okay?" So, all right. They said, question 2. How many seconds are in a year? Forrest said, 12. Peter and John said, 12? He said, "Yep, there are 12 seconds in a year." They said, "Now, Forrest, how did you get that answer?" He said, "January 2nd, February 2nd, March 2nd, April 2nd, all the way to December 2nd. That's 12 seconds in a year." They said, "Forrest, that's not quite what we had in mind, but we're gonna give you credit for it." He said, "All right, here's your last question. What is God's first name?" Forrest said, "Andy." He said, "Andy?" He said, "Andy, he walks with me. Andy, he talks with me. Andy tells me that I am his own. Andy